I'm Mike Arrujo. I'm the Executive Director of Rhode Island Jobs of Justice. And when we were initially talking about moving the co-op legislation forward, we had a little bit of friction between the social enterprise greenhouse about a little bit of misunderstanding of where we were at. And we came to a really good understanding and clarity about our position and potential goals in this. But in that conversation, we discovered I had grown up in a large cooperative housing, actually the largest cooperative housing in the country, and I had grown up inside co-ops. Like I didn't realize that there were actually other business structures or housing structures. And, you know, my vision of capitalism was very much only informed by living in Co-op City, which is a city the size of Providence, where all the schools are co-ops, all the businesses are co-ops, all the grocery stores are co-ops, all the decisions are made democratically. So I was disappointed when I got into the rest of the world. And as we pointed out, I'd actually worked for this gentleman before on an ad campaign, which was actually pretty exciting to make that connection. So it was kind of exciting. So I guess we should probably work from the outside in, right? So you traveled furthest, I believe, right? Bethany, you live close.
I live here.
Yeah, right. So why don't we start with you, Dan? Why don't we talk about that?
Who's on our panel?
Yeah, let's do the introductions. So Dan will be first.
You want to do that? Okay.
Let's do that.
So my name is Dan Crocker, and I love co-ops, and I can demonstrate that best by saying I live in a co-op, I work in a co-op, and I shop in a co-op. So I'm definitely dedicated to co-ops, so I kind of know the feeling.
Yeah.
My role is Vice President of Director of Cooperative Development at Ocean Spray. So I don't know how long you want me to spend, but do you want me to just stop there and then go names, or do you want me to talk a little bit more about Ocean Spray?
A little bit further. Then
Okay.
So Ocean Spray.
Yeah. So let me tell you a little story, and I actually brought a couple pictures just to help. About cranberries and co-ops. So I don't know how many of you know what the three native fruits are to North America, but they are the Concord grape, the blueberry, and the cranberry. Okay, so cranberry is very important, and it was on the first Thanksgiving table, as lore has, but more importantly, it's a native fruit to this country. Every other fruit that's grown in this country, that's cultivated in this country, was brought from somewhere else. So cranberries were first cultivated on Cape Cod 200 years ago, and I'll show you a picture of what it used to look like when they cultivated them. You can kind of see here, down on their hands and knees, they would scoop the cranberries out of the fields. Old black and white picture, and we can pass this around later. And so cranberries are known as a specialty crop. And that's because there are a total of 60,000 acres of cranberries in the world. Now that sounds like a big number if you don't know farming, but if you know farming at all, that's like one big wheat farm in the Midwest. 60,000 acres is nothing. So the only reason you know what a cranberry is, and the only reason you've ever heard of Ocean Spray, is because of the cooperative model. So over 200 years, cranberries have grown from what was a very small hand-picked crop to a collection of farmers around North America who, you probably see pictures of the floating berries, maybe you've seen the commercials with the two guys in the bog. And what it started as, and that's what he helped with, right? So where I'm going from cranberries then to co-ops is in 1930, there were 3 cranberry growers, 2 in Massachusetts, 1 in New Jersey, who said, we're having too much trouble negotiating with the big buyers. So in today's terms, selling cranberries to Pepsi and Coke, back then there were similar buyers that they just, as farmers, they had no negotiating power. So they couldn't get a good price for their cranberries. And so what they decided to do was bond together and form what's called an agricultural cooperative, or a producer's co-op. And what that does is, as a producer's co-op, they individually own their farms, but they collectively own their marketing department, their advertising department, their finance department, their IT department, so on and so forth, so that they can work together and pool their resources to sell their crops. So back in, I got one more picture. Back in 1930, the only real product of Ocean Spray was cranberry sauce. And they had this like crazy cranberry juice cocktail thing, but no one really drank it very much. And so they tried to work together, and as you know, cranberry sauce has traditionally only been a seasonal fruit, only consumed Thanksgiving. So what they wanted to do was expand the market for cranberries, and as farmers, the best thing they can do is if we can find more places to sell our cranberries, we'll be more successful. So over 87 years, they've been able to develop products that are all focused around cranberry, and that's the Ocean Spray brand and the Ocean Spray products that we sell in 90 countries, over 1,000 products in 90 countries. Now, it sounds like most people think that Ocean Spray is like owned by Pepsi or Unilever or one of those, and that it's just big food. But honestly, this is the true success of an American co-op, is that all of the proceeds that are earned each year go back to the farmers. So all the farmers that grow their cranberries, they deliver their cranberries to Ocean Spray each year, and they give it to us on faith. They say is, you get the cranberries for free, and please go earn as much money as you can on those cranberries, and then the proceeds all come back to us. If you're thinking these are all huge industrial farms, the average cranberry farm is 18 acres. So these are small family farms, and Mike worked on one of those farms shooting one of our ads. But it's really an incredible story. Most people don't know that Ocean Spray is a co-op, but this is why I'm very, very passionate about how co-ops can be successful, because you can take a fruit that is a little tough to eat. I don't know if you've ever had a raw cranberry, but they're a little tough to eat. You can take a fruit that's a small specialty crop with small farmers, and you can turn it into an international business that is exporting fruit around the world from the United States. It's a great success story. It's something that I love to share, but it's also really important for those families. Most of our farmers are 5th generation, 6th generation farmer families. I know them very personally. I've sat at their kitchen tables. I've been to their funerals and their weddings. I know who I work for, and that's, I think, part of the magic of the co-op, is that you're working for real people. So because you're sharing those profits with the people, you're making sure that we're all working as a common purpose. So that's my quick introduction on Ocean Spray, and other people have other stories they want to share, and then I'll take any questions.
I think that was great.
Yeah.
But staying in beverages.
Hi, I'm Bethany Karbowski. I work with People Exchange. Our headquarters is based right outside West Bridgewater, or outside Boston, in West Bridgewater, Massachusetts. We do our coffee roasting there. This is our 31st year in business. There were 3 founders in 1986 who wanted to change the way trade was done in the U.S. They came from the food co-op world, and we're just big dreamers, and said, I think we can do this crazy idea to work with small-scale farmers in developing countries. Specifically, they started in Nicaragua, and they wanted to make sure that they were challenging, again, the way that trade was being done. So coffee actually wasn't even the main purpose of getting in business at the beginning. They were able to, challenge the U.S. government. There was an embargo on products coming from Nicaragua at the time in the 80s. And, they found a loophole to have coffee coming from Nicaragua, roasted in the Netherlands, and then sent back to the United States to circumvent the laws here in the U.S. So it was about, solidarity for small-scale farmers initially, and just happened to be coffee. And so, jumping 31 years later, we have coffee and tea and chocolate and bananas and avocados, you name it. We are sort of working on it in one way or another. And we have about 143, I think, as of last count, worker owners. It's a worker-owned cooperative. The founders initially thought, should we do a nonprofit business model? Is this really the best way to be successful? And in the end, they decided to show, the United States that the worker cooperative could be a profitable model. And so we're still 100% worker-owned, and tend to stay that way. There's a clause in our contract, in our bylaws, that says, we can never sell out. If we were to, sell the company to some other organization, all of those profits would go to charity. So there's this, strong incentive to keep it within our system. I don't know how deep to go here, but I don't come from the co-op world. I kind of have more of a background in fair trade, but I came to Equal Exchange through 10,000 Villages, which is a fair trade organization that sells these products, and had no idea about cooperatives at all until I joined Equal Exchange, and it has been about 4 years, a little over 4 years, that I've been learning about the model, which is very unique. I could talk about it for a long time, but I'll probably just try to highlight the most distinguished features for you all. But it's hard to believe that we've achieved this much success with this model that is so kind of wacky. But it can be done, which is why I want to be here speaking to you all about it. So, in terms of the co-op model within our organization, it's very different probably than most corporate cooperatives. There's no, one definition of the way a worker-owned cooperative should be, but with us, it's one member, one share, and one vote. Everyone shares in the profits at the end of the year. If we have a profitable year, we share in these patronage rebates together. If we have a loss, we also share in that loss every year. It's based on the democratic principles, political equality of citizens. There's the right to speak your mind at meetings. We have open books, access to information for everyone, and there are outside investors who do not get any sort of voting rights. It's just a small 5% return. Equal Exchange as a whole is about between 2 to 5% profitable every year, and we don't want to be above that, and obviously we don't want to be below it, but somewhere right in the middle area. I don't know how deep to go. I've got so much information.
We need so much.
There's a lot.
There's a lot to it.
So
Yeah.
Philip is obviously you're the closest,
Yeah, I guess.
right?
Yeah.
Sure.
So
So I'm part of Urban Greens Food Co-op. We are opening a consumer cooperative grocery store, community-owned, that is not open yet, that will be open on Cranston Street, 93 Cranston Street, which will serve sort of the West End and South Providence. Construction is starting in about a month, and the store should be open sort of middle of next year. It is very much focused on sort of both sourcing locally from as much local production and local sources as possible, and also building a lot of food access programming and nutrition education into the store, so that we're creating a lot of avenues for people in all parts of the surrounding neighborhoods to shop there. That's, I guess, a high-level overview of it. Consumer co-op is a little different than either kind of the producers co-op or the workers co-op, so I'm sure we'll get into that a little bit. But essentially it means that it's owned by customers. Some of the strengths for sort of any business that's more sort of selling things that it doesn't, make or, source directly from producers, or distribute rather, like a consumer co-op can make sense. It lets it be more accountable to the community. It sort of enforces a basic transparency to community members and consumer owners. And it really ensures sort of wealth creation and wealth development in the specific area where the store is focused, because that's where sort of most of the owners are going to reside. Right now we have, I think, like 790 or so member owners, which is a pretty good number for where we are in the process before opening, before having anything other than a dirt lot.
How many was that?
790, I think. It's maybe 787 or so. But it's around that, and we're gonna try to ramp that up to be in like the 1,000 to 1,200 in the next year. But that's something where you get a bunch before opening, and then when you open, a lot more people get involved or buy in, and anyone can shop there, so it's not sort of exclusive. And we have sort of affordability memberships. We have a low-income and full-income share with different installment plans, so that we can be affordable to everyone. And I think those are sort of some of the key points for me for right now.
that's great. That was really good. So that's like the three kind of core co-op models, right? We have a consumer co-op, we have a producers co-op, and we have a workers co-op all at the table. It's kind of unusual. So the bill that's going through passage right now would allow for worker-owned cooperatives specifically in Rhode Island, so you wouldn't have to be in Massachusetts anymore You could come home.
How about that?
That'd be great.
But part of,
Credit.
yes. Yeah, maybe.
I know. It looks like business headquarters.
Yeah, absolutely. So, but part of the way this potentially could work is that the thing that everyone here has mentioned is that it's the accountability and responsibility you have to your core membership, right? You're accountable to your workers who are the owners, you're accountable to the consumer. How does that democratic governance actually work in the day-to-day for you? Whoever wants to take this first. Oh, you're the oldest.
Yeah, so am I old?
Yeah. I'm gonna go.
Oh, you mean the co-op? Or you
Co-op
mean-
is the oldest. I didn't say
Okay,
you.
thank you.
Co-op is the oldest. They were established in 1931.
Yeah, so we have a board of directors, and 13 out of the 15 board of directors are farmers. So even though to a lot of people we look like a large corporation, the farmers are very active in the day-to-day leadership of the company. So yes, their job is to hire and fire the CEO and the senior leadership, but their primary job is to provide the direction for the company, which means what are we doing to serve the interests of the 700 growers that we have across the U.S. So it really is, that board of directors is really important. And it's the fact that it's still true farmers that show up in overalls and with dirt on their boots is really meaningful in terms of making sure we have that connection to the farm.
Great. So one of the things that we heard from the Chamber of Commerce, which was sort of like walking into the Death Star for me, was that it's unwieldy. All this democracy is unwieldy.
Yeah.
In your experience, do you find the democracy to be unwieldy?
I do, and with 140-something worker owners, you can imagine, we also have many different locations. We're multinodal, so there are probably 5 main-ish offices across the country, and so meetings are challenging. Everybody's Skyping in, and you have to repeat the question all the time when someone asks one. It's very difficult. You don't know some of your coworkers. There are so many that you're voting on these people, and after a year of working there, you have the opportunity to become a worker owner. And so there are occasions where you don't know who you may or may not be owning a business with. That's a challenge. I think when they started out, it was a lot more manageable to see the same people in the office every day and to discuss votes that were coming up in person with people and get more information that way. But there has to be a really comprehensive education system throughout the cooperative is what I found. We have a whole year of orientation materials that people will learn from when they are just starting, a whole manual full of tasks to do, videos to watch, and people to meet with on different topics. So I would say more than anything, education is key there.
Amazing. So we were actually talking about that before, was how long the process has been, right?
The unwieldiness. I mean, so it's when you're in the startup phase, it's definitely a different challenge. We've mostly been, volunteer run. It's a working board, and we do it all, and that makes there both be a slowness that is the decision making and a slowness that is we have jobs, and that takes time. But I would say, there is a deliberateness that comes from this is other people's money, that if we mess up, we're losing other people's money, that I think does slow it down. You have to sort of think through every decision in a different way, and that does make for some decisions taking longer, or a lot of decisions taking longer, depending on them. We're doing kind of a branding planning for the store right now, and thinking about all the different, perspectives that it has to, and people it has to connect with. It's just a slower process. Right. It's not the same as having a few people in a room who are we're going with that one. The other thing I wanted to touch on around just being responsible to membership, I think one of the challenges in the startup phase is, so we're opening in a place where I would say it's surrounded by some pockets that are much more affluent than other pockets. It's a really diverse area, economically, culturally, ethnically, racially, and our goal is to be very inclusive. When you're pitching, membership first without even a location, and then with the location that's empty, someone who's more affluent is much more able to say, I support this, I'm going to buy a share. So, there's one of the early startup challenges for us is what our membership may be as we get closer to opening, and I think this is already ringing true, isn't necessarily what it was 5 years ago. And how do you keep in place the vision of this is where our membership should be and this is who we should be responsible to, while this isn't necessarily yet who our membership is, which is a challenge. And I think we have like an inclusion committee that's very focused on sort of both internal processes and external outreach, but that's sort of one of those like your membership, thinking about both your membership right now and being responsible for creating the potential membership that you want or something, or that is in line with your vision. That I think has been a challenge for us that we're still working on, but I think it's just part of the process. Yeah.
Well, they say this a lot about co-ops, is that the time of formation is it's when you're most homogeneous, right? So your membership is the closest, and your sense of purpose is the closest.
Yeah.
As you evolve over time, that will start to divide.
Yeah, and I think
that's what causes more tension.
Yeah.
It sounds like as you've evolved that way 31 years, we're 87 into that. It becomes even more difficult to satisfy all those interest groups.
Just stages of life.
So good luck with, like right now, enjoy this honeymoon period.
When I don't have to do quite so much, I'll enjoy it a little more.
So I'm going to put, actually, you on the spot, Brian. When we were researching the bill and looking at what the possible models are, one of the things we discovered were the success rates of traditional shaped businesses versus co-op. And one of the things we found was the success rate was...
It was, the success of working on cooperatives is like over 45% in comparison to 3% of the small businesses. And actually after that,
Ask a question.
Yeah.
Is that maybe because cooperatives are harder to incorporate? Whereas like if you get an LLC, you can just file it and then you can fall on your face shortly thereafter?
well, I guess there was, the thing is that like actually even working on cooperatives who what am I trying to say? Who like have the mentality of small businesses who operate under the same bylaws of a worker-owned cooperatives have even more success, even if they're both incorporated as an LLC.
Nice.
Regardless of that's the distinction. When all the members of all the workers of that cooperative have the same vision for the future and for the future of the company, that's when the success will become more. So regardless of how they're incorporated, it just comes down to the mentality of how they want to, how do they want to present themselves, how they want to operate. That's when the success is it's greater. After that point, having a conversation with some people who have been operating as who had the idea of operate as in worker cooperatives, had the challenges of not securing in the bylaws of being an actual cooperative, which means that somebody in that group decided to maybe had them more work, been doing more work, so they decided to have person take ownership of that company. And that was one of the challenges. And I think the reason of that is because there's not been structure before. There's not a structure of what actually be incorporated as a cooperative. So what I'm trying to say is that yes, worker-owned cooperatives has a greater success than small businesses. Small businesses who have the mentality, who operate as a worker-owned cooperatives, but those who have the structure because there's never been in place, also fall in that same category and actually lead them to failure.
I also think there's the additional part that, this is why I was asking the question about, is it more difficult? Is that the democratic process that you have to engage in performing it, everyone has to be in agreement to move forward with each step, makes for a much more careful engagement. So it's not going to be a harebrained scheme because you have to run your harebrained scheme by whatever number of people you're accountable to. So you're not going to open up the untucked shirt company, which I saw listed as lasted about an hour and a half. It's a bad idea. Had that been a cooperative, it probably would never have made it out of the park. But somebody was like, we're going to invest in that. So that leads to, and this kind of leads to the more institutional question that I have about cooperatives, is given their stability, and obviously Cranberry Ocean Spray is a model for that as well as equal exchange, and given the rate of return, 5% is actually a fairly high rate of return. Yeah, it's huge.
Yeah.
Why isn't, and why wouldn't a larger market to investors be inside the cooperative model?
$1 billion question.
Right. Why wouldn't an institutional investor, like, just speculate on what it is?
I mean, at the point where we are, I think about this all the time, and that we're in our capital raise. We have we've done like released preferred shares, so we are, recruiting investors, which means thinking about what's easy, what's not, and what works and doesn't. One thing is just co-ops, in food co-ops specifically, and I think this is true in some other areas, they don't do a good job of marketing across cooperatives. So I know food co-ops, like, people think of it as meaning like 50 different things. It doesn't always mean a store. It can mean 5 people buying together. It can mean like people always think it means a CSA share, which is like a vegetable share you get once a week. Like, there's not clean enough marketing of it, but also just of the benefits of it, so that when you hear those words, you think, oh, this is what I get, this is what I get, this is why it's good for the community, this is, I think there's basic improvements that co-ops have not moved quickly on marketing. And I think that then plays out also in, there are some cooperative lending institutions that you can do, that anyone can invest in, but it would be really easy to see opportunities for like 4 co-ops in different, to sort of join on an investment, or to work with, to create smarter investments. And I think, at least in food co-ops, because each one is community-based and local, they're less of their sort of benefits have been well leveraged to the scale that a larger investor looks for. So, at least from like a food co-op perspective.
That makes sense.
But
Yeah, from a producer co-op, it's because the farmers want to control their future.
Right.
So first of all, the way they're structured, we're structured, we can't sell to institutional investors. You have to deliver fruit to have ownership in the company. 100% of the shares are owned by farmers. But at times they've talked about bringing in investors, because that means you're capital constrained to just the farmers, and they don't want to lose control. Right. Because next thing you know, you're negotiating your price with someone else as opposed to dictating your own.
I heard it. Right.
Yeah, just equal exchanges done some really interesting stuff in that regard, right? I mean, Class B non-voting shares, and getting community capital to invest, like the relationship that Equal Exchange has with, what's the bank that has the CD that's...
the CFN?
No, it's not CFNI, no, there's a bank in Massachusetts that has the CD that...
So they have certificate of deposit that's specifically...
Yeah, we do that.
So it's sort of, it's an interesting way of co-ops getting capital where it isn't extracted and where it isn't controlling, right?
Well, yeah, and we have a preferred share that is a non-voting share that is exactly that. So like it's our startup capital. It doesn't, it doesn't give any rights that would influence the decision making.
So you actually said the word that it's going to go to the next one. I'm actually going to put Christina on the spot now that she's eating.
Finish up quick.
So,
Sirens.
I'm sorry,
I don't mean to be a tangent, but I feel like part of it's also that just in the American kind of zeitgeist of business and finance, like there's such like a fetishization of the like grand entrepreneur. And I think even though co-ops I think are more accountable, I think maybe I'm just projecting my own psychology out there on the world, but I think there's like, if I just know this one individual, somehow that feels more accountable rather than this team that's really there. It's feel like,
I think you're right about that. I think that it's an unusual model. I mean, it's one that I grew up in, and we had the Amalgamated Chemical Workers Bank that funded everything that had to do with anything. Because of its lack of familiarity, that's probably very much part of that. But given the stability and the return, you would think that that would be kind of a natural ultimate fit.
If you go, I was just going to say to that, if you go to a traditional bank and ask for a loan for a workers' co-op, there's first of all, that loan is going to be handled by someone who you probably will never actually speak to, like the paperwork. So there are bankers who have gone to business school and probably never even studied, let alone heard of workers' cooperatives, right? So they're going to be uncomfortable with it, even though the data suggests that they're much more secure, there's much more consistent rate of return. So things that banks should be falling over themselves to line up to issue loans to. There's a whole, industry of schooling that is ignoring this. So they come into the profession completely unprepared to hear these business models. So there's just, unless it's a community bank, small community bank, which are fewer and fewer, or some type of credit union, which is kind of a co-op, and typically more local. You're probably not going to have luck at big lending institutions.
So I think that was part of the goal when we were working on the legislation, is that we do have to get to a density where we can start to alter that, shift that process. So this is where I'm coming to you. So you said the word extractive, and Christina and I have talked about extractive economies a lot. And Christina is the director of the Environmental Justice League in Providence, right?
Of Rhode Island, yes.
Of Rhode Island, I'm sorry.
We are headquartered
I mean,
in
Providence might as well be, come on, right? Same, one of the same. But one of the things that you talked about is a transformational economy, and the cooperative model plays into that. So could you talk about that a little bit?
So the Environmental Justice League of Rhode Island is working towards co-ops, pushing co-ops development and transitioning from an extractive economy to a renewables and regenerative economies with solar and wind, understanding that there is a big labor force in the extractive economy, that their sustainability and work stability can't be undermined and needs to be transitioned in a way that's sustainable and healthy for all and for everyone's well-being. But the co-ops model actually ensures bringing the monies into the communities and growing the wealth in the community, so that there is self-determination in the direction in which people's lives are going. So we find the co-op model critical and crucial to transitioning into this new regenerative economy and having a more sustainable planet.
That's great. I mean, so it's literally what we were just talking about, was the farmers want to maintain control. Also, in 60,000 acres, preservation is vital.
Right.
You can't display the crop.
No, it's because these crops, I mean, the farms themselves are 100 years old, so it's all about, in fact, I brought along this measuring agricultural sustainability. So in terms of what Ocean Spray can do as a co-op, then they can work together as growers then to make sure they're doing sustainable farming, make sure they have good labor practices, good farming practices, good stewards of the land, and as you said, because you live off the land, these growers are stewards of their land. That's one of the reasons they want to maintain control, because other buyers may not be concerned about this, but they are concerned about it because it's their livelihood.
It's fascinating. All right, so are there any more questions? I mean, I'm coming up with the best I can come
Yo
up
tengo
with.
una pregunta para usted, señor.
Yeah.
Yo tengo entendido que ustedes en 2013 tienen una cooperativa en Chile cómo se maneja, o sea, el concepto de cooperativa a nivel mundial es igual, pero la parte cultural, ¿qué impacto ha tenido en Chile la cooperativa que ustedes tienen allá?
So I got Chile.
So in 2013, in 2013, apparently you opened a co-op in Chile.
Correct.
Ocean Spray.
Yep.
And she is curious to know what was the cultural barriers or impact or issues that you had to handle and deal with with working in Chile.
Great question. Yeah. So I've been to Chile 5 times since then. Beautiful country. I love going there. One of my favorite trips that I make. So what happened there was there were some farmers from North America that went down to start farming cranberries in Chile because the climate is similar in southern Chile as here in North America. So without Ocean Spray, they established a farm there and started to expand their farming operations. They also built a processing plant to process the cranberries so that they could then sell them. They were struggling in terms of how they could go to market and in terms of being able to continue to support the farming operations. So we came along, and our model is the farm joins the co-op, so they became members of the co-op, and then we purchased, the co-op purchased the manufacturing assets, so purchased the plant there. So from a model standpoint, it was better for them financially because then they would get all the return and have the benefits of having more pooled resources. So in terms of marketing and other business management. In terms of culturally, it was a challenge for Ocean Spray because as a very North American and Northeastern company, although we had international business, we didn't have international operations. We maintained every single employee that was there, so they stayed as part of the company. And now I think we've learned more from them than they've learned from us in terms of culturally, in terms of how to operate. And so I wouldn't say we've assimilated, but we are now part of the same family. So it was a challenge for us because it was new, but it's gone very, very well. And we've been able to double the production from that area, so that's been good in terms of the labor. It's in a very poor town, Blanco, Chile. So we're the biggest employer in town. So we're a big supporter of not just the employees that work there, but also some community activities as well. So it's been a great experience, but it was certainly a challenge. I would say we've gotten there after 5 years of working at it. So thank you for the question. Yeah.
That's a great segue because you interact with farmers in...
Yeah, I was realizing that I didn't mention that at all. There are 10 countries right now and 40 different cooperatives, and these are all organizations that either have it's just a primary co-op, or there could be primary and secondary cooperatives that we work with, and they use their shared resources for equipment. For coffee, it's depulping machines and drying beds and things like that. We've had a lot of really great success stories. There's just one I'm thinking of in the Dominican Republic. We have some cacao partner farmers there that their cooperative name is called Conocado. You look them up, and they had, they just had kind of poorish quality cacao for a while, and after they formed their cooperative, and this is probably over the course of 15, 20 years, they actually have gotten to the stage of having their own, they all own their own equipment, and they actually can produce the cocoa powder there themselves now, which has been amazing. So look them up, they're great.
So
it's very high quality.
When you say primary, secondary, I don't know what that means.
Yeah, I could go down a hole there, but in coffee, just quickly, there is a primary cooperative that they maybe have, let's say 80 farm families, and they would sell all of their, or bring all of their, collected beans to the other cooperative that, would do the milling and the marketing and would get it to equal exchange. So it's just, easier for them.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have a question.
Yes.
so for example, Ocean Spray, there's 13 board members who are farmers.
Yep.
And consensus-based decision-making and all that happens at the board level. At operations level,
Yeah.
the staff, is that consensus-based decision-making? How does the model translate to actual operations? Do staff members have a voice, or is it more of a traditional model?
It is more traditional, but I think the culture is less traditional. So decision making, I think, it's more hierarchical than like a lot of normal businesses. But because of the culture of our co-op, I think that permeates the decision making. So it's I don't think command and control isn't part of our lexicon. It's much more try to be collaborative. So one of our values is collaboration, respect, ownership, innovation, and collaboration. So I think at the operations level, collaboration is very, very important. And that's because we try to emulate our farmers and how they operate. And they wouldn't like it if they heard that, there's somebody that's pounding the table and telling everybody what to do at the worker level. So it's more traditional, but I think our culture tries to break that up as much as possible.
Right, so one of the things that we have 3 different and distinct types of co-ops at the table. So we have consumer co-op, producer co-op, and a worker co-op. And each one expresses a different aspect of democracy inside that process, but they're not always operating democratically top to bottom, right? Like they can have different structures and on how they work. So, but culture does get affected by how that works, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It really, because of the co-op model, I think you get this sense of teamwork that maybe you don't get in other company forms. Because everyone who works at Ocean Spray knows what they're working for. They know they're working for the farmer, and the farmers all know that the people they hire are working with them. So there's really that symbiotic relationship, which is vital.
A lot more questions.
In some ways, are you guys like a co-op of co-ops? Not necessarily that all your producers are co-ops, but that they have cooperative principles or cooperative ethos?
They're only cooperatives that we work with. Yeah.
So you guys are a co-op of co-ops now, right?
Well, they don't really belong to anyone, but yeah.
They don't have voting shares.
Right,
Yeah.
so they
They're
are
the defined
a
relationship.
standalone co-op that does their purchasing from other co-ops.
Right, that's
So
true.
they're not a cooperative.
But there are federated co-ops like that where it's multiple layers of like landowners is one.
Are they really co-ops?
Yeah.
And so one of the things when we were working on the legislation, one of the things that we discussed with the Secretary of State and with other organizations was that the co-op model translates culturally for Black and brown people very easily. That's kind of a natural model that we kind of fall into sometimes. And because of that, it makes our process, having a structure that we're able to attach to, was a way to capture wealth inside our community and stability, right? I know that's part of your business model. Do you want to talk about a little bit how that works?
Yeah, well, I might not have understood the question.
So
because
the
I'm
way
excited
that,
to talk
yeah, I know you are. So as a consumer co-op, right?
Yeah.
So normally,
like leveraging wealth, basically.
you're leveraging wealth.
Yeah, so I'll say 2 things. One is first the thing, like how it applies across communities. I think it's a really strong point that is interesting. Like, just like food co-op might not apply, but understanding that shared wealth, it's incredible how many cultures in so many different places have different words or things they do, whether that's like credit unions or cooperative banking in Africa, or like, I think susus are these like kind of shared, like everyone puts in every month, and then once a year a different, or how it can be determined by whatever. It's like someone takes out the wealth, and it's a way that you share wealth among families, and that happens in West Africa and in the Caribbean. And there's just, so many different cultures are used to that shared capital or shared wealth in so many different ways that it's, I think one of the big things is just knowing that you need to talk about it in all those different ways. And yeah, in terms of us getting started, and I think this is true in general for sort of when consumer co-ops make a lot of sense, is when, what you need is a lot of capital to make the business, where it's less of where a producers co-op and a workers co-op are often sort of skills based. We're doing, we know how to do this thing, but we need to scale up. Consumer co-op is also often like, we need to have access to buy this thing that we don't have access to. So a lot of people pooling capital to create a structure that lets them buy that. And I think that that's where, by leveraging hundreds of people, you're able to create a capital that does compete with large stores. And both, in any given city and across the country, there's, most food co-ops are part of a national co-op chain that is, it's not as big as Whole Foods, but or Stop and Shop or any of those, but it is sort of scale competitive in terms of, because they can buy at a volume jointly. And locally so far, through our capital raising, the initial member share we've raised, I don't know, it's like 160 or 80 depending on the shares, but we've raised a good amount from those member shares, and then through the shared capital of the investment, another almost 400,000, and that's like people averaging 2,000 to 5,000 to 10,000 per, and that's a really good example of what having 100 different people, put into this at the higher level and hundreds at the lower level, what that does in terms of then being able to have a building that means we can source and we can sell and create sort of affordable streams of goods for people to buy. So and I guess the one other thing I'd say real quick is then the profits are essentially going back to community members and owners, and I think that's exciting. Awesome. Yes.
Yo quiero decir algo. Nuestra organización empezó hace 4 años un proyecto que se llama Incubadoras de Cooperativas.
So our organization has started 4 years ago a process that's called Co-op Incubator.
Y nosotros la intención, para hacer este proyecto pues hemos sido muy ambiciosos porque estamos cruzando sectores, sector público, sector privado y la parte comunitaria.
And this is very ambitious because we're working with cross sectors, the public, the private, and the community sector.
Nuestros asociados en estos momentos es la ciudad de Central Falls, Navigan Credit Union, está la Universidad de Rhode Island Small Business Development Center, nuestro compañero Joshua, y también está lo que es el Centro de Vida Familiar Brooklyn, Nueva York.
So our associates and partners are City of Central Falls, URI,
Navigan Credit Union
and Nyan Credit Union.
y Center for Family en Brooklyn, Nueva York. Entonces nosotros básicamente estamos tomando el ejemplo que el Centro de Vida Familiar tiene en Brooklyn, Nueva York, porque queremos levantar nuestras comunidades de bajos ingresos por la falta de estabilidad laboral que existe aquí en el estado de Rhode Island.
Yes, our work with the Family Center in Brooklyn, New York it's crucial because we want to lift up our low-income families that we have here into a place of stability.
Y básicamente las comunidades son las mismas, lo que se diferencia es la geografía.
So the communities are basically the same, but the difference is the geography.
La meta del Power Network es institucionalizar las cooperativas en el estado de Rhode Island.
So the goal of Power Network is to institutionalize the co-op model in the state of Rhode Island.
Es una manera de promover para que como en un terreno, como en la finca, vamos a cultivar para que florezcan las cooperativas.
So it's a way of promoting the landscape, so just like in a farm, so that the co-ops grow and flourish.
Por eso nosotros pues tenemos que empezar con algo importante, que era que mantengan su originalidad y su identidad, que son las cooperativas. Y por eso fue que introducimos la legislación, porque no tiene sentido uno crear cooperativas cuando no tienen su propia identidad.
So one of our important focus was to maintain the origin and identities of co-ops, and for that reason, that's why we introduced the bill and legislation so that we could stay true to the original co-op model and its identity.
Pues me siento pues muy afortunada de estar en esta reunión, ya que ustedes tienen la experiencia de trabajar en cooperativas, y yo los invito a que se unan a esta iniciativa para que entonces nos apoyemos de una manera mutua.
So she's very happy to be in this meeting and grateful to be with you all, and is inviting you to join the Power Network so that you can all collaborate mutually.
Porque básicamente para mí el cooperativismo es que entre nosotros mismos nos abastecemos nosotros mismos y levantamos comunidades de una manera sostenible y de una manera justa, porque realmente lo que nosotros estamos buscando a través de esto es que las personas puedan tener salarios dignos, tengan beneficios y crecemos de una manera muy pareja.
So yeah, the idea is to be able to support each other in each other's work, so we can lift up the community in a sustainable manner and ensure just wages and well-being for all.
Nuestra organización ha identificado dentro de lo que son nuestras comunidades de bajos ingresos, ha identificado dos problemas gravísimos en nuestra comunidad, que es las agencias temporarias y la subcontratación. Para nosotros eso es un cáncer.
¿Cuáles son las agencias?
Las agencias temporarias y la
yeah,
subcontratación.
so there are two. In our low-income communities, we have identified two big problems that are like a cancer to our community, which is the temp agencies and subcontract work.
Entonces, básicamente lo que nosotros queremos es que las mismas personas tengan, eliminar estos intermediarios y los mismos trabajadores y dueños tengan el acceso inmediato del servicio o del trabajo que deben realizar. Prácticamente pues queremos eliminar estos intermediarios que son los que se llevan la gran parte del dinero, de la utilidad.
Right. So our goal is to eliminate these intermediary agents and who take most or all of the profit, and keep the wealth and the monies in our communities.
Y un tiempo dado que las cooperativas sean cooperativas complejas, que las mismas cooperativas ofrezcan a las personas viajes, préstamos, como ocurre en nuestros países, porque en nuestros países las cooperativas tienen un desarrollo bien grande y son cooperativas que ofrecen muchas cosas que elevan la calidad de vida. Porque no es agradable uno trabajar y no tener calidad de vida.
So, and also the idea is to create, I don't know if the word is complex co-ops in English, but it's co-ops that also, that elevate the quality of life of the workers or whoever owns them, and that can offer like financing and funding and the ability to travel. Also, she didn't mention it, but education. And so that actually is much more expansive and offers much more possibilities to elevate the quality of life of everyone.
Bueno, eso era un pensamiento que quería compartir con ustedes.
That's an idea that you wanted to share with you all. Thank you.
That's great, thanks. How do people learn more about the Power Network, the Power Labor?
The Power Network. ¿Cómo la gente puede aprender más sobre eso?
Bueno, Power Network, estamos, ahora mismo estamos trabajando en desarrollar cooperativas. En estos momentos estamos creando una cooperativa piloto. Esperamos que esta cooperativa haga su lanzamiento y ojalá que sea con la legislación de una cooperativa de limpieza. Estos son los miembros. Educamos a nuestra comunidad para que las personas puedan desarrollarse.
¿Pero hay algún website o algo?
Nosotros tenemos el website que es www.fuerza-laboral.org.
So www.fuerza, Fuerza dash laboral, laboral.org.